Hello, welcome to today's video. Today I wanted to talk about my experience with medical PTSD, and this is something that I couldn't even label as a part of my own experience until very recently, because I was diagnosed with glaucoma at 8, and I would say that was the significant event that triggered this medical PTSD. And again, I wasn't even aware that it was something I was experiencing until recently. So I wanted to discuss how I now can identify my own experience, because I think it would have been helpful if I could have identified these things while I was going through them. So I was diagnosed, as I mentioned, at 8, and I think the first thing that I see in hindsight, hindsight being 2020, my personal vision could never, but my hindsight, very keen, perfect. I was first diagnosed because I failed the vision test at a school health fair. So then that following year at the health fair, while they're doing all the other testing, my blood pressure was significantly elevated. And this led to a series of doctor's appointments trying to figure out why I had such high blood pressure. Not at any point in that journey was it ever connected as a mental health issue. And now looking back, I can see that that was a trauma response, that I was so afraid of being assessed for medical things because I knew that if I failed, that it could be a life-altering moment. It can be really difficult. I think it's understandable to develop trauma and PTSD when one moment you're this normal person going through normal everyday life, and then the next moment life is nothing normal at all. It is urgent. I went from a normal eye doctor appointment one day to in surgery the next, out of school for weeks. I started going to the eye doctor on a weekly, monthly basis. I had surgery after surgery after surgery, and understandably that took a toll on me mentally, emotionally, and I started to develop PTSD. Another way in which that manifested is that I was very sensitive to comments related to being visually impaired. I can remember one moment in school where I was doing something at a computer, leaning in pretty close, and one of my classmates was like, "Oh, I think you might need glasses." And I burst into tears because it felt very exposing. It was very activating having any reminders of my vision impairment, of glaucoma, and I really haven't been able to successfully laugh about it, and I'm realizing a large portion of that is related to this PTSD that I've developed with being visually impaired and with having glaucoma. And I think that the biggest way in which it's manifested is, I think every single appointment, I'm so afraid of being exposed for having something wrong with me, and I have anxiety of appointments going wrong, always wanting to say the right thing, do the right thing, and in avoidance of being able to be more honest and in the here and now. I notice that I'm often activated in a very fight or flight type of way. I definitely have struggled with maintaining mindfulness, and my mind often hooks onto a lot of fear associated with my vision impairment, and the what if I go blind one day, what if things get worse, being really hyper aware of how my vision is every single day, feeling afraid that it's getting worse, not knowing I see that better this day than I can today, and some of that mental obsession and concern and anxiety that I can now better identify as a trauma response, as medical PTSD, and something that now that I'm able to validate, I think because I was diagnosed at 8 and because at a certain point these routines become so appointment. Okay, what I meant to say is these appointments become so routine. That makes a lot more sense. And even though not appointment is the same, and some hold a lot more weight and some need surgery, and trying to then develop the resilience to another surgery, and this never-ending hamster wheel of appointments and exhaustion, it becomes normalized at a certain point. And I think validating the resilience in it, validating that every experience is unique, every appointment is unique, and having to be able to adapt to each and every single one of them, and being able to hold space for the natural anxieties that come with the uncertainty of going blind and being visually impaired and having glaucoma, and also not allowing it to steal my quality of life more than it already has or will. And I think validating the trauma, validating the PTSD also validates the resilience, which helps me feel empowered to find that strength, to find that healing. And so I thought that it would be helpful to share. Maybe you relate to this experience. If you know someone who's dealing with a sudden medical event, being mindful of the way that that inevitably impacts their mental health is important, because I got a lot of treatment for my physical disease, and it took a lot longer to get that help for my mental health, when I think having them side by side would have been helpful. And so that's why I think it's important to share. Leave a comment, start some conversation, let me know if you relate to this, and I will see you guys in my next video.